Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, Jeff.
How
are you doing today?
Not too bad. My fiance is starting to get into D&D, so
that is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. It was her and her friends have like a comic book club.
Yeah, she mentioned that.
Yeah, they get together every month and read comic books and stuff. And they decided that they want to start doing D&D instead sometimes. So like, I got really excited, but I don't want to get too excited because I don't want to be like the parent who like tries to be the cool parent and like interact with the kid. And
Sure.
So I don't want to discourage her by being too encouraging.
Yeah. Anytime Lisa's parents tell her to watch a movie, she, as a rule, will not watch it.
Right.
Even if it's something that she would really, really like. The movie Ed Wood, we didn't watch for the longest time, despite the fact that, like, once we finally watched it, she loved every second of it because her parents told her to watch it.
Right.
And so as a result, she waited like 15 years before actually watching that movie.
Yeah, that's a real thing. Like I do that too, and like my fiance Skylar and I both do that all the time. Like It's like, when somebody's like, oh, you should see this or you should do this, it's always like, yeah, I'll do that.
And to be fair, I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah, there's probably a term for it because it's one of those things that happens that people, but yeah, I'm trying to encourage, but from a distance,
Sure.
Like, because her and her friend are getting into it. And so, like, I was texting her friend. I'm like, which edition are you guys playing? Do you need any help?
How did you generate characters?
It's like, what kind of character you
What
playing?
classes are being used up already?
Right, yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to, keep my distance, but be enthusiastic.
Because you have mentioned this to me, a little immersion break there. I meant to ask you if this had anything to do with her playing D&D at the library.
Well, they did have plans before that.
Okay.
And that was part of the reason why she actually came in and joined in.
Sure. Because for listeners out there, within the last week, we did another one of my little D&D nights at the library. Mm-hmm. So I got a chance to run a short game.
Yeah.
Jeff was there.
Yeah, we there were actually a lot of people showed up.
There were 10 players.
Yeah, we had 10 players.
Yes.
And I think one of them left at the very end, but had to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gabe had to run an adventure for 10 players. Most of them had never played before.
Yes, I was not expecting that at all, but I was
cool.
fine with it. There were a few times where there was just everybody was talking, and that's not a problem because they were talking about the game.
Right, for
there
sure.
There would be like those 3 players were talking about what they should do, and these couple of players were talking about what they should do.
Yeah, so that'll definitely would be difficult because people are breaking up into smaller groups, still discussing the game, but as the DM, you have to pay attention to every single one of them.
Yeah, and also we had a deadline, which we went way over.
Yeah.
We had a soft deadline of 1 hour, a hard deadline of 2 hours. We were clearing out at about 2 hours and 2 minutes or something.
Sure. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
So we had a good time.
Yep.
That was fun, and everybody got a chance to do something cool. So
yeah, I just hope that I was able to give everybody enough attention.
Yeah, I think it went well.
Cool.
I think it went well. But so Skylar came to that, because she just wanted to at least get the feel for it.
Sure.
Because she knew that they were going to be planning to do something eventually. But although the character that she used, she's like, she kept and took with her to her comic book club and was kind of like, I don't know if they ended up doing any actual playing or anything like that.
Sure.
Oh, actually, no, I do know what they did. They listened to Adventure Zone.
Yes.
They were just playing around with character sheets and like building characters and listening to Adventure Zone. So I was like, yes.
Yeah, the Adventure Zone's a lot of fun.
Yeah, she's getting nerdier, and I love it.
Now, part of me was hoping that she came to the D&D thing at the library and then was like, oh my goodness, this is so good. I have to get all of my friends into this.
Well, I mean, at the very least, she didn't go to the library thing and be like, you know what, never mind, I don't want to do this.
That's a good point. Meanwhile, my wife, who is the librarian, was constantly walking into the room and just shaking her head at all of us. There was one of her friends actually came to it.
Oh, right.
And she was like, "But you're so cool. Why would you go to play D&D?" Anyway. All right. So do you want to go ahead and get into the episode?
Yeah, let's get going.
Cool. Oh, actually, I do need to mention briefly before we go any further.
Oh, sure.
That as of a few days ago,
Oh, right.
our podcast is now in a fellowship with the guys at Crit Academy.
Woo!
Now, functionally, that basically means that they'll promote us and we'll promote them.
Sure.
Hopefully that will lead to collaborations in the future. And actually, spoiler alert, I guested on their podcast not too long ago. And I'm not sure when that episode is going to be coming out. But when it comes out, be darn sure I'm going to be telling everybody about it.
Right, yeah.
So,
there'll be links.
Yes. So yeah, anybody who has not checked them out, go to critacademy.com.
Mm-hmm.
They're a great podcast, similar format to our own. They've got some great insights over there. Justin, the guy that does most of it, he really knows his stuff. It's a great podcast. It's a ton of fun to listen to. Mm-hmm. Everybody who hasn't checked it out, I demand that you check it out as soon as possible. It's great. So yeah, and we'll be posting about that on our blog, on our Twitter, on Facebook, everything.
Sounds good.
All right. So Jeff, I want you to imagine that one day you are walking along and something about your body feels strange. You're walking along through the woods.
Have I eaten recently?
You have, but you feel like you ate a lot less than you usually do. You're walking along and you come across a group of bandits on this forest path. And they don't run away from you in fear. And you try to say something to them. You try to like intimidate them. But what comes out of your mouth sounds like words that you weren't expecting.
Okay.
Everything just has this weird dream-like effect to it. But you notice like you can't see as far as you usually can. You can't hear as well as you usually can. Your body is covered with these weird coverings. You're not quite sure what they are. You feel like attacking somebody, but when you do, you pull an implement out of this pouch that's on your belt. You're wearing a belt for some reason.
What?
You try to fly, but you can't.
That's the worst.
You have no wings, in fact. Because you're not a tiefling from the Sword Coast Adventures. God, you're freaking stupid. But sorry, immersion break. But you don't know what's going on, and you start getting terrified, and these bandits start running after you. But then you wake up, and you realize, whew, you're safe at home, asleep on top of your dragon's hoard. You are not a human. That was just a nightmare.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. But more importantly, you are on top of the dragon's hoard.
Yay!
All right. So our item for today.
My item.
Jeff's item for today.
No, I didn't come up with this, but it's in my hoard.
Yes, and this is actually not a submission. This is just an RPG Superstar item that I found. But this one is called the Bitter Widow's Veil. It's an interesting item. I was not expecting it to be as interesting as it was when I first clicked on it. But so this is a delicate black veil, often made from black lace or crepe and affixed to a cap, bonnet, or band. Once it is donned, amorphous shadows swirl beneath the veil across the wearer's face. Whenever a humanoid creature is slain in combat within 30 feet, the Bitter Widow's Veil gains 1 charge, manifesting as a small shadowy tear. Expending this charge causes the flickering shadows on the wearer's face to coalesce into an inky overlay of a woman's anguished visage and unleash a bereaved scream.
Ooh.
An invisible 30-foot cone of terrible grief radiates out from the veil's wearer. Creatures within the area of the effect must make a DC 16 Wisdom saving throw or be sickened with sorrow for 5 minutes. If any of the affected creatures have dealt a killing blow to a humanoid or monstrous humanoid within the last 12 hours, they are stunned in the throes of helpless, weeping grief for 1 round, after which they are subject to the sickened effect.
That's pretty cool.
While the Bitter Widow's Veil contains an unspent charge, the wearer can see and hear ethereal creatures as described by the See Invisibility spell. The vial may only contain one charge at a time. An unused charge dissipates in an hour, if not otherwise expended. So this item, that was a lot of rules, and also they were most of it was Pathfinder rules. So I apologize if there's any discrepancies between Pathfinder and 5th edition. But this item, I think, has a really, really cool theme and some really neat abilities. Yeah. So yeah, if a humanoid creature dies near you, you gain the ability to project grief in this like horrifying, bereaved scream.
Yeah.
And so you project that grief onto enemies, or I guess to any creature within the cone. Sure. Can be sickened. So I'm in 5th edition. I'm not entirely. I don't recall if that is still a thing. But you can so basically you're sickening them. You're making them take penalties on stuff. And then if they are the one if they have killed someone. So if you're fighting a bunch of bandits and they kill one of your party members, you stun them, which is that's a big deal no matter what edition you're in.
Sure.
So that's a really cool idea. And that the fact that when you have an unspent charge, you can see ghosts.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is real. That's probably my favorite part of this entire thing.
Yeah.
So if you have that grief and you have not forced it upon somebody else, you have a connection to the dead that you don't have otherwise. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And one thing that last part reminds me of actually is the Harry Potter books.
Oh, sure.
In the Harry Potter books, small spoiler, in the in the
Order of the Phoenix?
In the 6th book, Harry is able to see creatures he couldn't see before. These weird, nasty looking horse things. Am I wrong?
No, it was in the 4th book.
Well,
it was in the 4th book that he saw someone die.
Yeah.
And then it would have been the 5th book that he
was the 5th book. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My apologies. In the 5th book, he's able to see these weird winged horses that previously were invisible to him because you can only see them when you have
witnessed death.
You have witnessed death and come to terms with it, because there's a plot hole. Everybody points out that at the end of the 4th book, he should have been able to see them, and J.K. Rowling has come out and said, well, he had seen death, but he hadn't processed it yet.
Sure.
So, anyway. So I just think that's a neat idea for a character's death to mechanically impact a player character in some way. I don't think that those things necessarily should be always mechanically relevant, but the fact that there's a way to make it mechanically relevant, I think is really cool.
Yeah.
It's opening possibilities that wouldn't be open otherwise.
This is the part where it's within the last 12 hours, if somebody has slain, they get stunned. So this could even be used if you know if you found a murderer or something.
Oh my goodness, yes.
You could use that as your opening attack sort of thing. It's you know this person has slain somebody, or you can use it to maybe figure out that they've killed somebody.
Yeah.
You use this on a suspect, and if they get stunned, then for sure they've killed somebody within the,
This would require a ridiculous setup, but I could imagine a courtroom having the widow wearing one of these, assuming they were to do the trial within 12 hours of the victim's death. The widow could be wearing one of these and then use the thing on the suspect or whatever.
Oh, the 12 hours thing, it makes it almost reminds me of Minority Report, where they have to figure out who the killer, you have to find out where the murder happens and who it is in a certain amount of time, because they only saw it so far in the future.
Sure.
So then they have to figure it out before it happens so that they can stop it. It's the pre-crime division or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen that movie, but it's an interesting idea. That,
So I mean, it'd be cool that when a murder happens, they have to try and figure it. They have to try and figure it out within 12 hours to gather suspects within 12 hours so that they can use this item
and then hit all of them because it's a cone.
Right.
So group them all together.
Yeah, they gather all the suspects, and then they maybe even go further and make them drink a potion that lowers their will save or their wisdom save. And then use this thing on them, and then they all get sickened, but whoever gets stunned is he's the one. And he's no, I killed my aunt, not my uncle, I killed this other guy. He was robbing me.
Right. No, that's a cool idea. Yeah.
So I don't this is a pretty cool item.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody wanted to submit any items for the Dragon's Hoard, or if they have any questions they would like us to discuss on the podcast, how would they do so?
They can send us an email at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
That is correct. They can also go to our, we have a dedicated subreddit at reddit.com/r/InterPartyConflict. And our blog is can be found at InterPartyConflict.com.
Yeah.
So let's get into some questions.
Okay, sounds good. All right, the first question comes from Fingers Fate on Facebook, and they ask, what are some ways to show players that alignment is not concrete and how to stop them from hastily making assumptions when they see monsters?
Yeah. So especially I think this was more an issue in like the 3rd edition days, although I'm sure it's still a thing.
Yeah.
In the monster manual, generally it will say that a given monster is like always a certain alignment.
Yeah, it'll say always evil in the actual description.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's a little goofy considering the fact that a lot of these creatures are sentient, and you can't really say that a sentient creature is always evil unless you're getting into the possibility, the thought of like, well, that just means that that whoever the perspective of the book writer, so like whoever the adventurers are that are going to be fighting these monsters, they're the judge of whether they're evil or not. I don't know. I think that's getting a bit too far into it, but it is a weird thing for there to be monsters that are like always evil or even mostly evil or whatever. But there's always, even when it says always evil, there are going to be exceptions where this is the one succubus that is somehow lawful good.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah, and those could make for interesting adventures where you come across a succubus that's good aligned, and it's like, oh, that's interesting.
Or even on a less rare case, just like a non-evil orc.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, it might not be, he might not be a paladin, but he's at least not gonna, pillage and rape or anything. Like he's just a guy.
Right.
But like in the example of orcs, I think there's something in their lore that describes that like they're all born from like the deity of orcs or something. Like there's like it's like
Groomsh.
Yeah, Groomsh. He's like the one-eyed like orc god or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, so they're all spawns of him, and like his evil is kind of like interwoven in their existence in some way.
Yeah.
So like there are some, I guess there would be some creatures that would like, that kind of is how it is. Like they have the root of evil in them somewhere, and that won't necessarily, come out in the way that they act all the time. But then again, that's all up into interpretation of, of the people playing the game. Like when you're setting up an adventure, or when you're making your own campaign or campaign setting, even maybe the orcs in your campaign just don't have that.
Yeah.
Are just normal people, but they've over generations have been raised to be kind of evil-ish, or for the most part are evil, but not all of them are. They're not born evil. The orc society has, become evil over time, and so now most of them are raised to be evil, but they're not necessarily always evil. Yeah,
I think it's just kind of like, it's part of a much bigger problem that a lot of people have their hands in making. So like it's because of a lot of the people that run games where all orcs are evil in their games and so on. It's also the fault of the writers who write the stories about like, oh, this is just the nation of orcs and they're all evil.
Yeah.
And also even the people that made the game were probably not thinking about, ooh, how do I make this a living, breathing, believable world? They were like, no, let's make a game and let's play characters. All these things are all evil.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that have all added to the stereotypes of these creatures are always evil and so on. And like the idea of like the murder hobos where the players just kind of go in and kill everything that opposes them. They take everything that's not nailed down and then do it all again. There's a lot of things that add to that. So this is not a new problem, obviously. So it's a hard thing to combat, I guess is the point I'm trying to get to. So if you're running a game and you don't want that to be the case, if you want it to be that there are orcs that are not evil, it is going to be hard to get that across to your players. So the best I can think of is to say that you have to try to put your players in a situation where they can witness evidence that a given creature is not evil, but not that they can affect it. Yeah. Because if the players see an orc and they are in a position to run up and kill the orc, if all that they have been taught is you should run up and kill every orc, they're going to do that.
Yeah.
If you give them the chance, they are going to do it.
Yeah, because of course they're going to do it. That's free. That's experience and gold and equipment that they can have.
There are so many ways that the game incentivizes killing an orc the moment you see it.
Right.
So what you should try to do is try to put them in a situation where they see an orc but are not able to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
So like they see it from far away or they see it while they're tied up. Here's a great idea I just thought of. The players get tied up by bad guys. An orc comes and saves them.
Sure. Yeah, that's not a bad way to do it. Yeah, and this is something like if you want to make sure that the players like have this in mind that maybe not all orcs are bad. Obviously you want to do this early on in the adventure. Maybe that's the start of the adventure. You know? It's like you're like, okay, you wake up and you're tied up, and then like an orc comes and saves you, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess orcs aren't all bad in this campaign.
Right.
So like it's hard to not make it a theme. Like the theme of the campaign is not all orcs are bad. If you wanted to just be part of the setting, then you would have to kind of set it up pretty early on, just so like they know right off the bat, oh, in this setting, orcs aren't all bad.
Sure.
And that could be something you could just explain flat out. Like, expect to see monsters that aren't necessarily evil. Our monster races. But if you do want it to be a theme, like you could have it be like, okay, your adventurers get hired to go kill some orcs,
mm-hmm.
and then maybe you get through a few waves of orcs and killing them, and then you come across like some orc children or something, and like they don't seem so bad when they're young. Maybe they're just raised to be evil or something like that.
Yeah.
So like which might have the players question it from then on, but it's all up to the presentation, I guess. In the case of like player alignments, the thing I always think to is the lawful good paladin.
Yeah.
And this is I remember reading in like 3rd edition, like you had like the alignment requirements of some classes, like I think all monks had to be at least some form of lawful.
Yeah, all druids had to have neutral somewhere in their alignment.
And it was ingrained in there so hard that like if you went off of that alignment in any form, you had a chance to lose your class.
Yeah.
Or like you didn't lose your class, you just lost like the major abilities. You became useless basically.
Depending on the class, in a lot of ways you did lose your class.
Yeah. So I mean like a paladin had to be lawful good, so they had to follow the lawful good alignment definition as they were basically told, if you do not follow this rule, mm-hmm. you will lose your character in a way.
Yeah.
So like it kind of ingrained in everybody's minds, like, okay, I have to do this. I have to be lawful good. When, we've definitely talked about alignments before, they shouldn't be so like the, like Finger's Fate was saying, they shouldn't be so concrete.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, we have mentioned alignments, and I will always go on a tangent about alignment whenever I can. But like alignment, if you're running alignment as a rigid thing, mm-hmm. you're probably running it wrong. If you ever use alignment to dictate what someone should or shouldn't do,
right,
you're probably doing it wrong. The way that I personally like to do it is anytime a player says they're going to do something that I think is contrary to their alignment, I would never say, you don't do that because of your alignment. What I would say is, why do you do that? Like, right. If you are lawful good, why are you stealing?
Right. Yeah. Because somebody who is lawful good, or even chaotic evil, somebody who is chaotic evil might do something that might be seen as good. Yeah. And they probably have a reason for it. There's obviously the player wants to do it. So like there has to be a reason for that character to want it. And it doesn't mean that they're playing off character or anything like that. They're not. Sure. They're not. They're not ignoring their alignment. They just have to find a creative way to kind of fit it in.
Yeah, yeah. Like if you can think of why your character would go against his normal impulses, mm-hmm. then yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing. No. Sometimes good people do bad things because they feel it is for the greater good.
Yeah, for the greater good, or it might just be an impulse or something.
Might just be circumstance. Yeah, there's lots of reasons why alignment can't be a concrete thing.
Yeah, it should be much more of a guideline for an idea for your character. Not necessarily a rule.
Yeah, but then if your players have only played in groups where alignment is a concrete thing, mm-hmm. yeah, how do you get across to your players? I mean, you could always just sit them down and talk to them and say, okay, guys, sure, let me tell you a little bit about how I'm dealing with alignment. You could. That's a little clunky. I think that maybe it would be better to, try to bring it out in the game. It's always a good idea to try to use consequences as a way to get across important messages, important lessons to your players. So, I mean, this is kind of a kick in the stomach, but if you want to get across to your players that not all orcs are bad or whatever the monster is, you could have them encounter one, and if the players inevitably kill it because they assume it's evil, have them find some evidence that no, it was actually not evil. Maybe that beholder somehow or another was like building an orphanage. I don't know, something like that.
That sounds amazing.
Yes. There was a 3rd edition adventure that I ran when I was playing as Ichi. In that campaign, I was a terrible DM at the time, but I ran a short adventure that I found online that was the players come across basically a little village of reformed monsters. So it's a village that there's a bunch of monsters that are normally always evil. And one of the NPCs they come across is a beholder that is a surgeon. And he has his disintegrate eye stalk, but he has like a special lens he puts on it that lets him use his disintegrate eye stalk as like a laser. So he can do like laser surgery.
Can he do laser eye surgery?
Yes. Laser eye surgery.
Laser eye.
Exactly. Yes.
Eye surgery.
So it was, and then the whole thing was like, they encounter this village of like friendly monsters, and then some actual monsters attack or something, and the players have to like try and figure out what's going on. But so you can introduce a monster and then have the player, if the players kill it, sort of, give them a little slap in the face and be like, oh, well, it was actually doing something good.
Right. like find on its person like a love letter or something.
Right.
Like, aw.
You can do that. There's ways to do that right, but I think most DMs probably won't. Gabe.
The orc.
Oh, yes. Not this last D&D thing at the library, but the previous one. The players woke up in a jail cell. They got out of the jail cell, and then they got out into the hall where there were 2 orcs. They attacked the orcs. One of the players killed one of the orcs, and then the other orc was like, Gerald, no!
Right. And then after slaying the second orc, he like reached for his hand. And
they like held hands as they died. And then
it's like, oh, that's sad.
I want to say the players found like a note that was like a drawing of the 2 of them that said like Thomas and Gerald or something.
Oh, they had such a good bromance.
Yeah. That was just a goof I was throwing in.
Right, yeah.
I decided to run with it. A lot of my campaign ideas are.
But so like little things like that, like I kind of felt bad. Like it's like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a humorous example, but you can use stuff like that to show the players, oh crap, maybe we shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Regret can be a powerful thing. The important thing though is that if you use something like this to show the players that not all orcs are evil, and then the next orc they encounter is evil, that's going to be sending the players mixed signals.
Right.
So if you start to do it, don't immediately deviate. Like if you start it, stick with it for at least a little while.
Here's something. I think in the last couple of campaigns that the last couple of like adventures that we've done, I don't know if this was because of like the rule, like the actual rules of the editions we were playing, but you basically started having us declare whether or not we were killing something.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a little way of like when you give somebody that choice, you have them think about, do I really want to kill this thing? Like, do I for sure want to like end this thing's life, or do I want to just knock it out, or or whatever? And that could just be like, do you want to leave it alive so you can question it or something? But I mean, like at the very least, in my case, I'm always like, do I really want to kill this thing? Like I guess I don't have to.
Yeah.
Like we're just knocking it out so we can get through the adventure. It doesn't need to die.
Sure.
So like giving your players choices like that, it will at least make them think a little bit about what their characters are doing. So it's not just like, okay, it's dead. You dropped it to 0, it's dead, it's gone, bye. Having that choice of keeping it alive might make them think that might not be a bad idea.
Sure. Yeah, that ever since 4th edition, players have the option of keeping something alive. I don't remember what it was in 4th edition, but I've actually recently learned that in 5th edition, it is only with a melee attack. I was under the impression it was with any attack. I want to say that's what it was in 4th edition. Any attack, you could choose whether to kill them or leave them unconscious. In 5th edition, though, in the player's handbook, it does say it has to be a melee attack. So you couldn't like shoot an arrow or a magic missile and leave them alive.
And like that makes sense.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, you could, instead of you don't use the sharp end of the blade, you use the side of the blade or something like that.
Yeah, I'll get into it some other time because it's something that I can go into at length. But I think that kind of an option is a great addition to the game. I think that the game did suffer when it was especially difficult and very disincentivized to leave someone alive.
Right. Yeah. Third and 3.5, like non-lethal damage.
You took such huge penalties that nobody did it.
Right.
Now, I guess I'll get into. I'll just make it really quick. When in earlier editions, it was possible to not kill someone, to deal non-lethal damage, but it was so difficult to do that nobody did it.
Right.
And so as a result, people just never left. People just killed everything they came across. The whole like cliche of the murder hobo comes from the fact that players would just come in, kill everything, and then move on and kill everything else.
Yeah. They didn't really have much other choice.
Exactly. Once the game started making it easy and not in any way difficult to leave things alive, I think that was a huge benefit for the game. Because yes, it is less realistic for it to be easy to knock someone out.
Right.
But the game is better when the players don't just wantonly kill everything they come across.
And one of the more exciting things is a reoccurring villain.
Exactly.
Like that can be a lot of fun. Like, yeah, you didn't kill him and he came back. Or like, do you want to maybe kill him this time? Because he might come back again. Who knows?
There you go.
So like that can be exciting.
Yeah, you should you should make it easy for your players to have difficult decisions to make. If the player is playing like a lawful good paladin, maybe it might make sense for them to take prisoners instead of killing things. But if the game actively discourages it by making it very hard for them to do, the end result isn't, this player is going to make some tough choices. No, it's that player is not going to make a choice.
Right.
He's just going to kill everything.
Right. Yeah. I'm gonna use my full attack bonus and not take like a -4 and then have to deal like twice as much damage just to knock them out. Or
exactly.
Something. I can't remember what it was, but it was ridiculous.
Yeah. But so back to the point, what you were saying, giving the player the option to not kill a creature that they think is evil can just put just a little seed of an idea in their mind that maybe killing this thing isn't necessary.
Right.
And then that'll hopefully make them think a little bit more about why that might not be necessary and so on.
Or, you might have a ranger whose parents were killed by orcs and they have a +2 to...
You're acting like there's a different kind of ranger, Jeff.
There's only one type of ranger, and it involves the death of 2 parents by the hands of orcs.
Yes. So just to kind of sum this up, if you don't want your players to think that alignment is a concrete thing, and if you want your players to think that monsters are not necessarily... given a life, monsters are not necessarily evil, you need to put the players in a situation where they can witness a monster going against type, but not interact with them while they do it. So they can see it and be able to take it in. Also, if you are going to go against type with a monster, don't immediately go back to type. So if you're going to try and get your players to realize that not all orcs are evil, have some more orcs not be evil. Don't have one good orc and then the rest are all evil.
Sure.
Because that does, that kind of kneecaps the point you're trying to make.
I mean, I guess unless that's like specific to the story, like there is just the one good one and he's trying to help.
I suppose.
But I mean, if you're just trying to put the idea in the players' heads that this can happen, it's good to make sure that there's not just one exception, that it's more of a running thing.
And from a narrative standpoint, the trope of the one good blank, like for example, Drizzt, the one good drow.
Yeah. Right, sure.
That is a trope. That's a common trope. It's been out there for years and years and years. But the more it happens, the less entertaining it is. It is interesting when the one good orc saves the players from being tied up.
Sure.
It is less interesting when every third orc is a lawful good orc. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use lawful good orcs or, anything else of that example, but if you are trying to make it narratively interesting,
sure, yeah.
maybe you should have it be that there is a very, very small number of them that are good, but you have to then find a way to integrate that into the story without the players just killing them on sight.
Yeah.
So this is a tough issue.
Yeah.
It is something you have to put some thought into, but hopefully we've given some ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Alignments is always going to be one of those ones we can get into for a very long time.
Yes.
There's a lot having to do with it. Like most of the game is storytelling and the characters and what their motives are is a big part of that.
Sure.
This next question was sent to us by Essential NPCs Podcast on Reddit. And they ask, what are some tools or resources you use to help run a game?
Yeah, there's a lot out there. A lot of tools that do different things, a lot of resources that do different things. I'll cover a few of them. One thing that I just want to briefly touch on is Roll20. I'm sure lots and lots of people use Roll20.
Yeah.
I never have. We've briefly covered it before.
We talked about it a bit. Like I haven't really used it myself. So.
Yeah, but from what I understand, it is like a browser-based program. I thought you had to download something. I don't think you do. From what I understand, it's very easy to use. It's browser-based, and then you can use that to, I believe you can use that to like video chat, I think.
I think so. I think there's there's at the very least a text chat.
Yeah, there is text chat. I think you can do roles through that, and you can.
It's like a virtual tabletop.
Something like that. Yeah. Again, I'm sorry I haven't used it, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But so many people talk about how good Roll20 is. So check out Roll20. Recently, there was an episode of Crit Academy that they went pretty in depth on that. So check them out as well. Aside from Roll20, there's a lot of online encounter builders that people have made. One of them is, I think it's kobold.club. I'll put it in the links, but in the show notes. But it is it's like the Kobold. I think it's called the Kobold Fight Club Generator. Okay. I think is what it's called. So if you go to YouTube if you go to Google and type in Kobold Encounter Generator.
Sorry, Gabe. I only use Yahoo.
I only use Ask Jeeves.
Oh my gosh.
So that is a very, very good 5th edition encounter builder. It has, you can put in like how many players there are, what level they are, whether you want it to be a hard encounter or an easy encounter, and then you can have it just randomly populate it. Or you can, again, put in how many players there are and what level they are. And then as you go through and you like put in this monster and then this monster and so on, it'll tell you whether that is an easy encounter or a moderate encounter or a deadly encounter.
Sure.
Now, of course, my own experience with this is that because it's 5th edition and it is so dice-based because your modifiers are so much lower, you might have something that is supposed to be an easy encounter and it steamrolls your players.
Right.
Or you might have something that's supposed to be an overwhelming encounter and your players just blow right through it.
Yeah.
So use it with a grain of salt, but that's going to be the case with any kind of encounter generation in 5th edition. So, kobold.club, I'm pretty sure is the address. I could look it up right now. I'm not going to. And then I'm sure there are character builders that third-party character builders that people have made using like a Excel spreadsheet or something.
Sure.
I should probably mention that pretty soon, if it's not out already, pretty soon there's going to be D&D Beyond, which I believe is going to have a character builder. But I'm a bit wary of that. I subscribed to D&D Insider when 4th edition came out. D&D Insider was advertised in the books. It was like, oh, for more information about this, check out D&D Insider.
Yeah, like the first page was a full color ad for D&D Insider.
Exactly. Despite the fact that, so I subscribed to it, and 2 of the features that were heavily advertised, the character visualizer and the virtual tabletop, those were 2 things that I specifically subscribed for. Neither of those features ever came to fruition.
Right.
Neither one was ever released.
Yeah. The only thing they ever really put in like any work into was the character builder, which wasn't bad.
The character builder, and also there was a there was a thing that was called like the D&D Compendium, that it was basically like all of the data that was in the character builder. You could just, it was like a search bar. You could just bring up whatever data you needed.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, those were good features. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But just a word of caution for anybody who is interested in D&D Beyond. If they have said they're going to implement something, but they haven't yet, do not use that as a basis for whether you should give them your money. Only subscribe if the features that are currently out are worth the price to you.
Right.
Because whatever they've said they might come out with might not actually come out.
Yeah. This goes into if anybody plays video games, which I assume most of you do. Like this is
video games. That's nerdy, Jeff.
That's nerd stuff.
Yes.
It's like people are like a lot of people are very against pre-ordering video games before they come out, or even like the early access stuff like that. Like it's a similar thing. It's like if you don't know for sure that's what you're getting, why are you going to put money up? And like of course it's like if you really want to support Wizards of the Coast and you really like everything that they've done, and like maybe they've made mistakes in the past and this and that, but you overall support them, and you have the money to spend, that's all fine. But like keep in mind that like sometimes they promise something and it doesn't come.
Yes.
And you've already paid for it, and what then?
And I mean, hey, everybody's human. I'm not demonizing them.
Sure,
but
yeah.
I am bitter about these things that I paid the money for.
Yeah, you have a right to be bitter.
They took my money for this thing they were advertising, and even though they did not provide what was advertised, they didn't give me any of my money back.
Right.
That is frustrating.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. Like I didn't put money up for it, but I was still bummed out that it didn't happen, because I want something. Like I always wanted something.
I want an official way to visualize my character.
Sure.
That'll actually bring me to the next resource I want to talk about. Is a resource called Hero Machine.
Yeah.
You can go to heromachine.com. Just a little warning, the current version of Hero Machine has so many options, I don't even know how to, I can't even begin to try to use it.
They've added so much, it's kind of crazy.
There's so much to it. But there are earlier versions of Hero Machine. I'm pretty sure if you go to heromachine.com, you can probably use like Hero Machine 1.0 or 2.0. I think 2.0 is the last one that I have used in earnest. But what Hero Machine is, the earlier editions at least, it gives you have like a blank template of a person. You can choose like there's like a normal looking guy, like a muscular guy, a muscular woman, a very like a beefy muscular guy. I think there was a beefy muscular woman, and then like a dwarf-ish, like a dwarf guy and a dwarf woman.
Yeah, it's like a paper doll character customization.
Pretty much,
sort of
yeah.
thing.
So you have this blank template of whatever like body type you're looking for. You then can choose what color their skin is, what pattern their skin is.
Yeah.
You might give them fur. You can choose you have all of these different options for like what shirt they're wearing, what pants they're wearing, what they're holding in their right hand, what they're holding in their left hand, what aura they have, what background they have, whether they have a companion or not.
Yeah.
There were so many options, and it was just so fun and easy to make a character. Now, I think it was mostly geared for superheroes. There's plenty of like latex looking stuff.
Right, capes and like glowy superpowers and stuff like that.
But I made so many D&D characters in this program. I'll put some of them in the show notes. Yeah. I have plenty of characters that I've just, I need a cool concept for a character. I would mess around with Hero Machine for a little bit and be like, now I'll make that character in D&D, and vice versa.
Yeah, we used to toy around with this a lot. I remember when I think this was back in the days of like MySpace and stuff like that.
Probably
we had like our profile pictures as these characters.
One time I made Chewbacca as like a middle-aged suburbanite.
Did you get glasses?
He's wearing slippers. He's got glasses on. He's wearing like a polo shirt. He's got the newspaper in his hand. It's pretty good. I'll put that on there too. So Hero Machine is a great resource just for like, you have a character. I want some sort of a visual representation of it. There you go. I would have loved to have an official one from Wizards of the Coast.
Sure. Yeah.
But
and with this, you don't have to like. It's not going to be like super detailed. Like I said, it's kind of like a paper doll sort of situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, like at the very least, like even if it's not for your character, but for like an NPC or something, you'll have some sort of visual representation that you can show the players, and they'll at least have an idea. And you put their name above their heads in big bold letters, so they might they might have an easier time remembering somebody's name.
Yeah.
If they can see if they can see them and get an idea of who they are.
Yeah, and the more like the most recent version of it is a lot more free form, which is why I have no clue what I'm doing. I prefer to just be like, here's what the base character looks like. I'm going to add to it instead of being like, okay, here's an arm. Put this arm wherever you want in this huge field.
Oh, okay.
Now put a head and another arm, and it's all like.
So it's not just more options. It's more like there's
more custom, like everything is customizable. You can put anything where you want.
Yeah, I haven't seen the recent edition. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, it does sound like where it's like when you have too many options, it's hard to come up with something. When you have fewer options, you find ways to make those fewer options go further.
And to be fair, I'm sure someone could probably come at this having never used the original version and have a super easy time.
Sure.
But since I'm used to it being like, here's what you have, customize it, having so much more freedom, it does get a little overwhelming.
Yeah, sure.
Aside from like D&D Inside or D&D Beyond and like Hero Machine, you can find like dice rollers online. I'm sure there are online initiative trackers if you are going to have your computer with you and you need just like a quick and easy way to keep track of initiative.
Sure.
There's like city generators and stuff too if you need just like a quick random map of a city.
Yeah.
One thing that I do want to mention, because I found it a long time ago and I've never seen anyone else use anything like it. Long time ago, I found a program that was a tavern generator. There are probably other ones that people have made, but like this particular one I really, really like. And I'll try to, if I can find it on an old laptop, I'll try to put it in the show notes. But it's this little program, very small file. You open up the program and then you choose like how big of a tavern you want it to be, how many people you want there to be at peak hours, how many people you want there to be at like, minimum hours. And then like what the main clientele is, like what race. I think like you might even put in like how magical the surrounding city is or something. And then you click the generate button. And then it generates not only a floor plan of the tavern, but also, shows you where all the tables are, but also it will generate a list of NPCs that are currently in the tavern and like what they look like, what they sound like, and what they have on their person. So if a player wants to pickpocket that guy with the scar on his face wearing the cloak, they might find, he's got a curvy dagger and he's got like a rock that looks like a face that gives off a slight buzzing sound or something. So it will go as in-depth as giving you NPCs that the players can interact with. So I think that's a really neat resource. And like I said, I'll try to find it if I can. I haven't really looked too hard, but I haven't seen in passing any other programs that are quite like that.
Yeah, something that can put that amount of detail in there that like, sure you could put that detail in there yourself, but like if it's just for like a tavern that the players randomly walk into that you weren't planning on. Exactly. Like you don't want to be so unprepared that it's like, this is like, seeing the edge of the Matrix or something like that. It's like, right. This room hasn't finished loading yet. Let's go back the other way.
Yeah. So those are some neat resources. Also, if you want just like character ideas, I know that's something that a lot of people can make use of, players and DMs alike. Some places to get ideas. One more thing I should mention is a name generator.
Yes.
I'm sure that there are online name generators.
There's tons.
Yes.
There's tons, but they never help. They don't help me. I have a problem. All right, listen up, everybody. I have a confession to make. I'm really bad at coming up with character names. Like, I'm sure we've mentioned this before, but I will go adventures into a campaign before I've actually decided on a character's name.
Yeah, to the point where when Jeff shows up with a character with a name, I'm like, I'm visibly surprised.
Right, yes, there's
I'm like,
shock.
Jeff, are you okay?
Yeah,
what happened?
There's a veil of shock in the room.
Did you think we were playing last week? That's why you have a character name this week?
Yeah, right, yeah, I got confused about the date. So I mean, like, name generator is helpful, but I have trouble.
Yeah.
Even with that.
And I'll try to find an example of each of these things that I've said. I'll try to find an example for each and put them in the show notes. So this episode's probably going to have a ton of show notes.
Sure.
Another couple things that I want to mention, again, just for coming up with like character ideas. If you go to, I don't know how good it is nowadays, but Pinterest was often a really good resource for just finding like neat ideas for stuff in general. I'm sure that there's probably like fantasy pictures and stuff like that. You can find on Pinterest.
From what I've used in Pinterest, like you can type in like fantasy art and like it'll bring up a bunch of like art that people have made of fantasy, and then you can go even more specific, fantasy art elf, if you want to find elves or something.
There was a website that I used for a couple campaigns. I would like tell the players about it. That I don't remember the name offhand. I'm actually not entirely sure if I'm going to put in the show notes, but which for reasons I'll get to in a second. But there was this resource that I found online where it was kind of like this board where you could type in a certain thing a character might. You could type. Let's say you type in beard, and then it will aggregate resource. It'll aggregate pictures from like DeviantArt and all sorts of other picture resources. It'll grab a whole bunch of pictures that have the tag beard.
Sure. Or
you can type in orc, and then it'll bring up everything that has an orc, and it'll bring up like dozens and dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of pictures that have the word orc somewhere near them. Or you might type in like dwarf and then black hair or something, and then it'll bring up every black haired dwarf and so on. So there's all sorts of tags. And then there's all sorts of like combinations you can make if you really, really want a tavern picture that has a dwarf that has a beard and there is a dragon in the picture too or something. You could type in all these tags and it would bring up however many it's able to find that have all of those tags. I don't know if I'm going to put that in the show notes because I found out after I usually have an ad blocker. I found out after quite a while of using this with this website with an ad blocker. I posted about it on Reddit or something, and then I had several people message me and say, dude, all the ads on that are porn. Don't post that link
oh my gosh.
in a non like mature forum because a lot of and not only that, but a lot of the pictures in it are are not safe for work as well.
Sure, yeah.
So I don't use this website anymore, but maybe I'll put some disclaimers or something because I have gone on about this for like 5 minutes.
But no, you definitely, I think you told me about this before. Well, it's like it's a good resource for finding like character ideas,
right? But it is not safe to browse at work or
I guess I never really thought of that. Like, even use an ad blocker like that, you could be blocking ads that are like much more adult than you would realize.
Right.
So like, hey, check out this website. You go on somebody else's computer and put it in, and you're like, oh no, not this. This is I must have typed something wrong.
Wait a minute, there are girls in my area. So
Christian singles.
Yeah, maybe I will put that one, but again with a heavy disclaimer. And then also not even necessarily that, but if you were to go to Reddit, there are several subreddits that I'm subscribed to that are just like what I consider like inspiration art. There is a subreddit that is r/imaginary characters, where it is, it's usually art from other places. Sometimes it's people submitting original art, but it is just artwork that is like a cool picture of a character. And there are all sorts of characters. Sometimes they might be men, they might be women, they might be all sorts of things that you might never think of, just like neat combinations of character traits or just a really cool evocative character. So imaginary characters is one. Another one is imaginary monsters. Same thing, but with, it's just some like picture of a dragon that is doing something really cool. There's also imaginary landscapes. There might be like, oh, it's a city that's up in a cloud, or like there's a landscape where that mountain is actually a giant turtle or something like that.
Yeah, like that one.
Yeah. So like imaginary characters, imaginary monsters, imaginary landscapes. There's also imaginary technology, which I'm not subscribed to, but there's, it's cool like steampunk and like sci-fi stuff in there too.
Sure.
And also imaginary leviathans is one that I like too. It's like monsters, but they're all like giant monsters. A lot of the time it'll be a picture of like, oh, a boat. But then if you look really closely at the water, you realize that there's some sort of gigantic, unspeakable horror directly below them or something.
Okay.
So yeah, like those are some really good resources just for ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I love to just go to one of those subreddits and just scroll down all the pictures and look at all these amazing, like each one could be the inspiration for a campaign. So those are some really good resources too.
Yeah.
Really any kind of resource. If you can think of something that would help your game, go to Google, type it in, and see if somebody's made it.
Sure.
Somebody probably has.
Yeah. There's probably an app for it, or at the very least somebody's talked about it on Reddit or something.
Yes. So I think that'll do it for the questions. However, I do want to introduce a new segment.
Oh yeah.
We might not always do this segment every episode, and when we do, sometimes it might be long, but I'm going to try to keep them short.
Sure.
I've gotten not necessarily complaints, but I've gotten comments from people that for a while the Dragon's Horde segment, I've always kind of felt like we were getting a little long in the Dragon's Horde segment.
Sure.
Sometimes they would be like 20 plus minutes of us sometimes talking about the item, but let's be honest here, most of the time it was tangents. So
you guys don't like our tangents?
So I've been trying to make the Dragon's Horde segment a little bit shorter, and also this segment I'm going to try to err on the side of shortness as well. But for this segment, I would like us to we're gonna kick back, and we're going to toss on another log to the funeral pyre. And actually, maybe that wasn't the greatest segue, because a funeral pyre is usually a bad thing. We're not going to kick back and relax at a funeral.
Sure, yeah.
Whatever the case, the funeral pyre is a new segment that I want to talk about, where we are going to get stories of character deaths, like player character deaths. Mm-hmm. If you want to submit one, go ahead. We are looking for character deaths that are interesting in any way.
Sure.
This might be a character that maybe it was your first character death, and so it's noteworthy for that reason.
Sure.
It might be that you had a character that died in a way that was just hilarious. Like you should not have died, but the dice just hated you or something. Or a character death that was just so ironic or so heroic. Mm-hmm. Your character died because he was, holding the door open for all the orphans to escape or something, and then the dragon caught up with him. I don't know. So any kind of character deaths that you think would be interesting for us to talk about, go ahead and submit them, and we will we might read them on the show. Sure. So to start this out, the very first funeral pyre, Jeff, do you have a character death that you would like to talk about?
Well, yes. Well, I should say for in most of the campaigns that I've played in fact, I want to say all of them I played in, we didn't have too many deaths. Or when there was like a free true res or something happened. So something that would basically bring us right back to life, pretty much in the next round or so.
Because just in general, I don't like character death. There's ways to make it great. Don't get me wrong, but in general, I would rather the story be about the player's characters, and unless there is a really good reason to kill one of them off, I prefer to keep those characters the center of the story.
Sure. So the death that I'm remembering is I want to say I came back to life right away afterwards, but it was towards the end of a campaign. This was in the Eberron campaign setting, so I was playing a Warforged, of course.
Yes, this was Jay's campaign.
A Warforged named Walking Stick because I couldn't think of a name.
I gave him that name.
I remember we were fighting a dragon that was part construct or something like that.
Yeah, I think we might have mentioned that on a previous episode, but yeah.
And I believe it had some like a cloak of flying or something like that. So I was flying. I was a flying paladin warforged who liked to charge in and attack. But I remember getting grappled by this dragon in his mouth, and then he used his breath weapon
while you were in his mouth.
While I was in his mouth, which pretty much just destroyed me. Like it brought me well below my. I think I was well into negatives.
Yeah.
But I remember getting snatched up by a dragon and getting blown across the
city probably, because we were like up on top of like a skyscraper.
Yeah, I think it blown into like another building somewhere, with his breath weapon, And then, I managed to stand up afterwards. Don't know how that happened. Weird. Oh, well, might as well charge back in and fight this dragon again.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool. The dragon utterly destroys you,
Yeah.
and then you get back up and just charge straight back in. I think that's really cool.
So that was kind of fun. It was pretty intense battle.
All right. Should I talk about my first character death?
Sure. Go
Okay.
for it.
My first character death is not as heroic. I was playing a monk named Harrop.
Mm-hmm.
He was a human monk. He was really the most boring character you've ever heard. But we were going through a dungeon. We came into a room where there was like a cloak hanging up on the wall. And I thought, oh, that's probably a magic cloak. I'm going to grab that cloak and I'm going to put it on. Well, it turned out that cloak was actually a monster called a cloaker, which resembles a cloak. It started off the battle by emitting a high-pitched noise that paralyzed my character.
Oh, God.
And then in the first round of combat, the cloaker then coup de graced my character and just stabbed its tail straight through my head.
Oh, my gosh.
My character was dead. And this was the first character I'd ever played. I'd been playing him for 3 or 4 months. I was pretty invested in this very lackluster character.
Uh-huh.
And nope, insta-kill.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, don't put on strange cloaks.
Yeah, I guess. Or if you're going to put on a strange cloak, I don't know, grab a 10-foot pole first or something.
Well, yeah, because even if it was a magical cloak, it could have been a cursed cloak or something. Or
I get there. To be fair, in the 3.5 Dungeon Master's Guide, in just the normal magic items, or sorry, it's in the cursed items. There is it's either a cloak or a robe. I think it's a cloak. It is a cloak that you put it on and you die. It's a cloak of poisonousness. You put this cloak on, you make a really high fort save, or you die.
Jeez.
That's it. No weird curse. No, you die over the next 10. No, you put it on and you die. I think that is a hilarious item because of how straightforward it is.
Right. And it can be very confusing because it's like, how did he die? He just put on a cloak. That couldn't possibly be what it was.
Exactly.
He must have been someone behind him who stabbed him or something. I don't know.
But this is not the Dragon's Horde.
Sure.
This was our first episode of the Funeral Pyre.
Yes.
I do have a few submissions that we'll probably be going through in the next few episodes. Mm-hmm. But if anybody else wants to submit any Funeral Pyre stories to us, go ahead and send them to us. Try to keep them short, but
short and sweet.
If you want to make it longer, I can always pare it down if I have to.
Sure.
So that will be this inaugural issue of the Funeral Pyre. So Jeff, allow us to let's raise our glasses and toast to the memory of these lost heroes. That was not added in post, by the way. All right.
You can bump it up a little bit.
I might. Okay. Well, that'll about do it for today. If anybody wants to submit items, questions, or stories for the Funeral Pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, or important links, or to download the episode, go to our website at interpartyconflict.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/interpartyconflict or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict, and we're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend about us. Anything you can do to help us out would be so helpful. Would be really appreciated. Yes. We also have a PayPal donate button on our website if anybody wants to go there and toss us a few bucks. Anything you can give us, we would use it to make the podcast better, and it'd be better for everybody.
Yes.
And Jeff, would you like to talk about FriendQuest?
Oh, yes. We also have our YouTube channel, FriendQuest. We've played a couple old Dungeons & Dragons arcade games. Sure. We have a couple other games that we're thinking about getting into, some Gauntlet Legends.
Yeah, that's a good game.
Yeah, that'd be a good one to do. I might record myself playing a game or two on there at some point. I haven't really gotten around to it, but but go ahead and check that out. It's FriendQuest. I don't think it has a dedicated YouTube URL yet.
We have to have enough subscribers or something first.
Right. So if you search for FriendQuest and Tower of Doom, which was one of the games that we played, you'll find it.
Yeah. So go to YouTube, find us on there, and then give us some comments, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscription.
Yep. Anything helps.
Yeah. All right. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So Jeff, until next time,
don't let a dragon grapple you with its mouth.
Yep.
Just stay away.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
It's a good piece of advice for everybody. All right. See you next time.
Bye.